Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Speak, Film, and Enter, a podcast where we review and rank movies. I'm Nate.
And I'm Dylan.
And I'm Adam.
And today it is Movie Club number 3.
Yep.
Where we are discussing and reviewing the 1952 classic from Akira Kurosawa, Ikiru.
Yes.
Which definitely one of his most acclaimed movies. Probably one of the most acclaimed movies of all time, really, when you think about it. And I had seen this once before. We're generally going to try to pick movies that not any of us have seen, but we wanted to do Ikiru now because this weekend, Living is coming out in the Twin Cities here and also in larger showings around the country, which is a British remake of Ikiru.
Yes.
So we thought this would be a good time to dive in and see the original before seeing the remake starring Bill Nighy. And like I said, I had seen this before, and I don't think you guys had. Did you know anything about it? What did you think going in?
I had not seen it. I did not know very much about it, but I think when you saw it, you told me the premise of it. And so I kind of figured, okay, it's a very deep kind of philosophical movie about life. And, I'm sure it's very good. So I just want to say this was a very good recommendation on your part. I know we're trying to do movies usually that none of us have seen, but I think this was a good call.
Yeah, I went in with no expectations. I'd heard of it, but I probably through you, but I think I'd heard the name before, but didn't really know much about it. But I read the synopsis on IMDb, and that was my only basis. So, but yeah, I'll echo Dylan's sentiment. Loved it. This kind of hits a sweet spot, I think, for every one of us, and people who like us will, I think, really like this movie. People in our age range or demographic, whatever you wish to call it. I think it was great.
And also, this is the third movie club, and so far we've pretty much loved all of the movies we've done. But it will not always be like that.
No, we will tell ourselves that.
We will be taking chances, on a movie. I'm sure we will not always just love all of them, but so far we're 3 for 3 because I enjoyed this a lot.
Well, we've gotten better at identifying the kinds of things that we like.
Yeah,
and directors that we like, but I'm glad you guys were finally able to watch this. I thought you would both really like it. Adam, you in particular, though, I just thought this is so up Adam's alley.
Yeah, it hits a little. I mean, I wouldn't say it hits close to home, but it hits you in a very emotional way, and it clicks immediately. So agreed.
Yeah, and really quick too. The first part of this episode is going to involve no spoilers. Sort of a shorter version of a standard review, and then we'll give our star ratings. And then if you've seen the movie and you want to hang out after that, we will get into spoilers. And this particular movie, I think, lends itself well kind of to that format of because it's hard to talk about without spoiling a lot. So really, we'll just cover a few things and kind of our overall thoughts before getting into the stars. But one thing that really stuck out to me was how timeless this is. I mean, this is a movie from Japan, very different culture than the United States, in 1952, and this could have come out in 2022 and been, and it basically is they remade it and it's coming out this weekend, but it was just astonishing to me how, and this is part of the reason why I really enjoy watching older movies, is because when you do find one that still clicks, for me, it's just a really cool feeling to think oh, they were dealing with this exact same feeling in Japan in the 50s as we're all feeling now.
Yeah. It's, to be cliche as hell, they say history repeats itself, but it continues to just prove itself true and timeless. And that this will always be an issue. Drudgery happens, and then you forget, things of that, the things really quick, you should be enjoying.
Did we tell the people what Ikiru is about? I think we might have skipped right past that.
Glazed right over that.
Yeah.
Let me pull it up real fast. Sorry.
Yeah.
Ikiru, a bureaucrat, tries to find meaning in his life after he discovers he has terminal cancer. So
there you go.
pretty standard, but so profound.
Right? Yeah, a kind of a basic premise that you would think a lot of movies would have tackled, but not very many have. Definitely not as well as this does. And I was
Yeah.
gonna say too, like this definitely has that almost like time capsule, or like it's like a time capsule feeling that I'm now realizing that like all of Kurosawa's movies have, because I also got that with like Ran and a little bit with like a little bit with Seven Samurai. There's other issues with Seven Samurai, but it definitely has. It's like, you know, it doesn't really matter what year they're set in. They're timeless stories. They're just they
Yeah.
exist in this world that just like still like all the themes relate to now. And I definitely felt that. It's crazy how much this movie relates to right now. Like I'm really interested to see the remake because I feel like they don't have to change barely anything.
Yeah.
Like like
Yeah, like, and how are you going to update even like which avenue are you going to choose to update like what he does or how it goes? You know, it's just
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I have seen the remake, which is called Living, by the way. I saw that 2022 at Sundance. It takes place in the 50s in the UK, and it's like 100 minutes, I think. It's
Okay.
it's like 45 minutes shorter than Ikiru is.
okay.
So that's an interesting decision, but we will review that movie and talk about that in the coming week here. But yeah, I mean, Dylan, to your point, I think he just is able to cut to the heart of every story he tells, which is similar to like Shakespeare in a way, where which is appropriate. I mean, he adapted 2 of Shakespeare's plays into movies with Ron, which is he made in the 80s, which is an adaptation of King Lear, and Throne of Blood from the 50s, which is an adaptation of Macbeth. But yeah, a lot of Kurosawa's other movies, they just cut to the human element so well that yeah, whether it's a bureaucrat in the 50s just kind of trudging through the everyday and then getting a little kick in the ass when he realizes he only has like 6 months to a year left to live, or feuding families in like imperial, like war-torn Japan, or like a dad whose like kid's friend has been kidnapped. Like he's just able to find the human element with everything, and it makes it so relatable. And I think there are a lot of great spots to jump on for Kurosawa, but for me, I think if somebody's never seen a Kurosawa movie, I would easily recommend they watch Ikiru first.
Agreed. I was actually thinking that while I was watching it. This is it's definitely the most accessible, and it's the one that I would show to anybody like first, just because.
I mean, I haven't seen any Kurosawa besides this now, so that's what I did. I started with it and absolutely loved it. So I'm
perfect.
Now I'm very interested to go through and see like Seven Samurai, because I've seen that remake.
I will not rewatch all of Seven Samurai with you, but I will rewatch Ran with you.
Okay, because I remember when you guys talked about that and how like specific and large and long it is, and like just what an endeavor it was. But
Adam, I would recommend your next Kurosawa be High and Low.
Okay.
Or Ran. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce it, but
whatever.
Either of those, I totally agree with Dylan. I would rewatch either of those with you.
Okay.
Seven Samurai is too long. I don't really feel the need to sit through the 3.5 hours of it again. I'd rewatch like the second half of it with you. But to keep the conversation on Ikiru, last thing I kind of want to get to in the no spoiler section is the lead performance.
Yep, absolutely.
By Takashi Shimura, who is in a lot of Kurosawa movies. I mean, Rashomon, he's in Seven Samurai. Yojimbo, he's in High and Low, Throne of Blood. A lot of them. Many more. It's like his face is just so perfect for this predicament that this guy finds himself in, that like sort of sad, like he's able to go from, or just relate this depression and almost shock at the same time, and regret. Like it just all comes through simultaneously with almost every look that he gives, and he's just so commanding for a movie that like a lot of it is just him just sort of looking bewildered and upset. And it could have gotten old and tired, but I think he just carries it from beginning to end all the way through.
Yeah, he brings this crazy energy with his facial expressions and like his eyes. Like there's one of the early moments when he's finding out that he has cancer. Like there's one line that somebody says, and he like kind of really clicks for him, like, oh God, like I think I have it. And like I actually like rewound that and watched that like one moment like 3 times, because his face, like it's like perfect reaction. It's like he just gets like crushed. And he's like connected. It's so well done. Like he was incredible like every time he was on screen. Yeah, and it wasn't like he was like kind of overdoing it. Like sometimes in Kurosawa movies, some of the dialogue and delivery and acting gets a little like too much, which I know was a style that was more popular in like the 50s. But I didn't feel like it like worked with him, because he's under extreme circumstances, and he just killed it.
Yeah, I think it's made more impressive too by what I noticed is most of this, like half of this movie, is just close-ups on his face, like just him reacting or like his conversations. It's just him in the scene essentially. Like there's stuff going on around him, you know what the scene looks like, but then they just basically focus on him. So most of the movie, you're understanding and learning and observing how it changes and in which little tweaks and inflections and stuff that he does with it, and that's what's so masterful about the performance.
And the moments when he does smile are even better.
Yeah.
Because he's so effectively conveying the sadness and the depression. It makes the delightful moments in the movie even better. So,
the range.
I think that's the biggest thing we should touch on in the non-spoiler, is just his performance. It's worth seeing for that alone.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Should we get into the stars then, and then we can dive into spoilers?
Yeah, let's do it.
Sure. All right, we'll be right back with our star ratings.
Okay, who would like to talk about how much they love Ikiru first?
I'll go first.
Okay, we're gonna do this new fun thing again because
we are. Oh, okay, cool.
Yes.
Did we throw up a photo of Ikiru, by the way? I don't remember.
We did at the beginning.
Okay.
All right.
Oh my gosh, so much pressure. Okay, so yes, I did love this movie. Came very close to giving it 5 stars, but I'm going to give it a 4.5. I thought it was fantastic. Overall, the only things that hold it back I'll get into in the spoiler section. But overall, it was just incredible performance. Kind of like we mentioned, a basic concept, but just executed so well and like with so much depth. And there's a bunch of very remarkable scenes, including the final scene, which we didn't really touch on, but just blew me away. And then there's also some really good kind of insightful social commentary, and the bit with the office, with like all the office workers and like the different like offices around the town that like the people have to go to, like really well done. And I felt like almost like ahead of its time. So I really liked it. And I think I know I will be watching this again. I'm going to go see Living. And then once I've seen the new version, then I'll go back, watch the original. And this could definitely go up to 5 stars. So 4.5 for me.
Awesome.
All right. I can go next if you want, Nate.
Adam, take it away.
I gave this 5 stars. I absolutely loved it. I'm going to echo everything Dylan said.
5 stars.
The performances were great. All the details of where they have to go, even the some of the details in some of the sets later on was just all like there's so much attention paid to all of these things that really make you relate more, that like it feels like it happened to you at some point, or like this story and it feels so deeply personal sometimes. I mean, in certain spots, and there's nothing you can do but connect with this man, and it's so human in that way. It's remarkable. I absolutely loved it. I don't want to say too much else because I feel like I'll spoil something. So
we'll get into that.
Just gonna stick with 5 stars.
All right. I am right there with Adam. This is I think one of the best movies ever made. It's currently my number 12 movie of all time, and that's what it was going into this second watch.
Ooh.
It might, it's very closely approaching my top 10. And just one thing that we didn't mention that really stands out to me as well is how Kurosawa avoids turning this into some type of saccharine, like overly sentimental thing. it
Yeah.
avoids that, which makes it so much more powerful, I think, and so much more rewatchable, and why it still stands as tall today as it did when it came out. So, yeah, an absolute masterpiece. Love this movie to death. Will definitely be watching this many more times in my life.
Yeah, agreed. I think I saw some. I read a review that was like a better "It's a Wonderful Life,"
Yes.
and I definitely agree. Like it's a Wonderful Life, but it actually like cuts deep into like humanity. It's not just all fun, nice Hollywood.
Right.
All right.
So with that, actually, before we get into the spoilers, I do want to mention that next week's pick for Movie Club week 4 is going to be The Piano, a Jane Campion movie from the early 90s starring Holly Hunter and what is her name? Anna Paquin.
Oh, okay.
I believe she won 6 years old. She won Best Supporting Actress for The Piano, I believe.
Wow.
And Harvey Keitel is also in the movie. So,
okay. All right. I'm in.
Yeah, now Dylan's all about it.
Yeah.
Remind me what Jane Campion just made.
Totally in now.
Sorry. What was that?
Said, remind me what Jane Campion just made. She came out with something.
Power of the Dog.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. There's something else. Yeah. Okay.
And so with Women Talking coming out next weekend, we thought it would be kind of fun to explore another sort of feminist masterpiece from a different perspective where a woman takes a vow of silence. So I'm really excited to see that. That's been on my list for a long time, and I really like Holly Hunter. So wanted to make sure everybody was aware that it's also linked or written down in the description in case you forget or want to check that out. So next week we will be reviewing The Piano. But with that said, I think we can get into the spoiler discussion for Ikiru.
Yeah. I was going to say, did we say what The Piano is currently streaming on?
We have not.
It's not. It looks like it's rentable. It's not streaming at all. So just rentable on all of your favorite services.
I think it might be on Showtime.
From what I'm looking at right now on Just Watch, it's not. It's just on rent. So
okay, it's since left Showtime. I know it was there like a few weeks ago.
But... Gotcha. Yeah. So find it at those places. All right.
Yeah. All right. Spoiler discussion. I think first thing we need to dive into is how insane the structure for this movie is and how bold of a choice that was. And it works and it totally could have not.
Yeah. I couldn't believe that he took it in that direction like that hard. Like all the stuff at his funeral is just like crazy. And it's like boundary pushing in a way that I feel like an American, like especially from the 50s, American directors were not doing that type of stuff. I feel like in the 50s. Like
I haven't seen a movie from the 50s. Been exploring a lot of old American movies. I haven't seen a movie that does that.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, it's just like he dies like a little over half, like 60% of the way through the movie.
Yeah.
And it's done in a way where I think the timing of it is great because like he finally decides to do something and like what he can do, and you see it and you get excited for him to like finally have some energy and push towards this thing. And then the next cut is just like his picture at the funeral.
Yeah.
And you're like, what?
Yeah. Well, and then
we don't need to worry about the details. Like,
yeah. And then because you that is like kind of shocking. And then you're like at the funeral and you're like, oh, I really wanted more of him. He was great. Then it makes the flashbacks in those last 40 minutes even better. Because then every flashback is like, oh yes, we get to like, oh, this is like him doing this. This is it.
Savoring it.
It's cherished. Yes.
Yeah, for sure. It feels like it feels like a real memory. Like it feels like you were like, you know what I mean? That's what I was talking about when I said like it feels like it was happening to you. It feels like that was your friend who like you worked with that you like went through this, you know?
Yeah.
You were around for all of it.
Yeah, and I also feel like the structure, like taking that approach and being so bold with it, I liked it more here than in Rashomon, which was also a bold choice of telling the same story 3 times. Like he definitely was experimenting with different ways to tell the story, and I just think this story worked so much better.
Yeah, I totally agree. And then it's just fun to watch his coworkers and you see kind of the impact he had on them. And I like the way that they kind of frame it with that interview with like the deputy mayor. Kind of like the park's been built. how much credit does he really deserve? And we don't know what he did yet, but we kind of have a pretty damn good feeling that he did a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
Given what we saw at the beginning, which great sequence, by the way, when they show the women walking around and being told to go to different departments.
Yeah, that's how it opens, isn't it? Like,
and then, well, it's a little bit after it opens.
15 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, because we see them at his department right away.
Yeah.
And then later we see and we don't know that it's a flashback. So I thought that was fun, the way that he structured that too, because when you're watching them go to different departments, you think that it's after they've been at his department, but then he winds it back, and then you realize that they're arriving at his department last.
Yeah.
Or again.
Yeah.
Or again, either way.
It's been through all of that, and they are done.
It goes on for just the right amount of time.
Yes.
It goes on for like, oh, it's just funny, and then like, oh, it's getting tired, and then like, okay, he's really making a point, and then when it finally, and you're like, oh my god, like so exasperated, like
yeah.
He makes you yearn for the just fucking resolve their problems. Like it's that hard, you know what I mean?
I love how the lady starts to walk away, and then the one comes back and just can't handle it anymore.
Like, yeah, like this movie's surprisingly funny at times too. But
also how the girl, how we first meet her, and how she so clearly doesn't fit in at the office.
Yeah.
Right? She has so much life. She's very bubbly, and that just like it sticks out.
Can't
like
have
it.
Oh, her joke about. Like, you can't take a day off because then they'll realize they don't need you. Who has not had a job where they felt like, if I wasn't here, it would not matter?
Wouldn't matter.
Like that. And again, like early 50s in Japan, it's just so relatable. And I love seeing movies like this from different countries that it's the same shit.
Yeah.
That we're dealing, like, it is exactly the same.
Yep.
Same types of feelings and everything, and the bureaucracy, and just this sort of like he's dead, as the narrator kind of tells us at the beginning. Like, he is not living a life.
Yeah, that was good. I mean, the dialogue, there's so many great lines. There's the whole sequence when he meets that writer, and they kind of have like a night of debauchery out on the town. Like, just the stuff that they're saying back and forth to each other when they're just drunk is great. Like, the scene in the cafe is just great. Like, it's just, this movie is chock full of quotable lines about life.
Like memorable sequences. That's one of my favorite parts of the movie, is that like 20 minutes you get to spend with that just kind of random dude that knows where the party's at.
Yeah.
And you get this old man who's just like, show me around and teach me how to have fun. I'll pay for everything. And he's just shit-faced. And he clearly doesn't fit in, but he's kind of enjoying it. Like, it's sort of fun to see how all the people, like, he's stepping into their world, and the way that they react to him is kind of amusing, because at different times they find him interesting, and then at different times they find him comical, and at different times they find him sad. Like when he asks the piano player to play that like old love song or whatever, everybody kind of has this weird reaction, but then when he starts playing it, everybody's dancing. And it's just an interesting way where he brings this different perspective to them, but that doesn't mean that it's without value, or that he doesn't know really how to have fun in some ways. I mean, everybody was shocked, and then it's like, oh, everybody likes this song and everybody's dancing, so what's the problem?
Yeah, and I kind of thinking about the movie since I saw it, I feel like that sequence is kind of like, if you pose this question, everyone's had that hypothetical, like, what if you found out you're going to die tomorrow or whatever? Like, what would you do? And so many people are like, oh, I just like party hard, like I just do a bunch of drugs and I just
really send it.
Yeah. And that's like kind of like, there's definitely that's a natural human reaction to be like, I'll just have fun the rest of the time. But then like, obviously that is not possible unless you truly just like OD on coke or something. Like, but like, right. Like, there's always like, you can't actually do that. And I think that was a great way of just like, yeah, we're going to have this fun sequence. And then after that, like, that writer's just gone. And like, and then it's back to really, really serious. Like, oh yeah, you're totally going to die, dude. And like, you can't just do that for the rest of your time here. It was really, really well done. That was
another
fun
thing I really like is that kind of his sort of epiphany or realization. The movie doesn't require him to change jobs.
Yeah.
Like, he could have found this level of purpose the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
It was just about perspective, which we kind of get with a fun like hat switch when he's with the writer.
Oh yeah, yep.
Sort of, I like how that works, and I just think it's nice, and it makes it easier for people to relate, even where the movie doesn't push this large change on the character, at least from like his actual situation that he's in with like work and family. Like none of that changes. It's just his perspective that changes, and he lives more in his last 3 months than he did in the prior like 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because he has that ticking clock, but that's not how it had to be. And I think that's an interesting perspective that the movie takes, which kind of leads into like how he, for one night at least, seemingly changes the lives of all of his coworkers when they get shit-faced and they're like, we're going to change.
Yeah.
And then there's really only one guy who, after that night, feels like they should.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't just lip service to him. He actually impacted like one person, which is a lot. It's hard to do that.
Yeah.
But that's what makes that scene just funnier and funnier as they're trying to figure out like why he did all this. And they're just
keep
drunk.
drinking.
Yeah. And they're just like, we're gonna live like he did.
Yeah. You're like, okay, pal. Like,
yeah.
I felt like it was like, I feel like maybe the biggest theme of it is, what makes a life like worthy, or like how do you judge like the worth of a life like well lived? Like what does that mean, a life well lived? And I feel like it's really interesting how that whole ending sequence at the funeral where they're talking about him, they're literally kind of talking about, like you said, Nate, like how much credit do we give him for this achievement? So they're literally trying to evaluate like, was his life right? But we as the viewer, having seen everything up to that point, we know that what they're talking about doesn't matter how much credit he gets.
Yeah.
He lived a worthy life because he got the park built, and he did something with all that useless time where he can't remember exactly what he was doing. He was just busy all the time, and he feels like he's wasted, right? It's just been a huge waste. But he turns that into, he does something that no one else can do, and he builds the park, and it doesn't matter how much credit he gets after he's dead.
Yeah, the park is still there.
The park is there, and that's like
what matters is the impact.
Yeah, and so it's just interesting, like different levels of like what of worth, and like I thought that was just very, very fascinating. I also was thinking kind of like I mentioned that it's similar to It's a Wonderful Life, but it's also kind of like a crazy twist on like Breaking Bad, like Walter White.
Sure.
Like I feel like him and oh god, I can never remember his name.
Vince Gilligan?
His
Aaron
character
Paul?
No, Ikiru. Kanji.
Oh yeah.
Kanji
Him and
Watanabe.
Kanji definitely went about it different ways.
For sure.
Same stages of grief and acceptance, just in different ways. But yeah, no, I was I really love the scene where they're all drinking and talking, and it makes you wonder, like, if I was to die, like what that would look like, for my group of friends or whatever. It's just interesting. It's just very timeless. And like, and the weird political, or not weird, but the political stuff with the mayor when he's there, and then the ladies who come in and they're like crying, and then it's like so uncomfortable for all the like bureaucrats and like his coworkers. I mean, just brilliant. Just like great social commentary.
Yeah, and then the scene with the cop.
Yeah.
Who was very moved by just, I mean, the scene with the swing in the snow is just like, how does that not just destroy you?
Yeah.
I mean, bringing that song back and seeing that old dying man when it's snowing, just swinging and singing this song that he liked in the park that he is responsible for building.
Yeah.
It's just such, and then it's funny how they mentioned before that like they found his body at the park, and it sounds kind of sad, like in a like depressing kind of bad way.
The way they like bump, that's where you think like
if you just heard on the news like, oh, an old man died in the park over there, you'd be like, oh, that's terrible.
Like, but when you see that flashback scene, it just feels like, how else would he have wanted to go? Like, that is the perfect way for his life to end, and he seems totally at peace with it finally.
Yeah.
It's
I love that it was in the snow, because that just, I mean, if you've ever like gone and sat outside in the snow while it's snowing, big flakes, small flakes, whatever, there's that weird, like, it's loud but it's still quiet, and it's like that, it's a perfect feeling, and it just it's like a warm hug of just whatever
there's
you
a
want to call it.
coziness to it, and like an isolation that's
there's something about falling snow, and it creates that weird vibe. And then it's interesting because McCabe and Mrs. Miller, the climactic shootout happens, in a falling snow. And we were just like commenting on how great that is. And now we get another old movie that also ends with an iconic scene in the snow.
Like,
also just like, it's just incredible. Like, I think,
it
falling
was
snow climbing my list of top
should be in every movie.
Top environments for for movies.
Somebody should die in the snow in every movie.
Or something should happen.
A sympathetic character can,
Next Pixar movie, we better see it.
Mm-hmm. So I did want to just touch on the only things that held me back from a 5.
Yes.
And it was basically 2 examples of the same thing, which is the, like, just talk about it, like, just say what's going on, and like the conflict will be eased. And the first one came with his son. I don't know, I can't remember the order, but one was with his son, when his son thought that he was fooling around with that girl.
Was so frustrating.
He just like didn't push back, and he just like walks down the stairs all dejected. Like, definitely hit me in the feels, but I was also like, that part of me was just frustrated. I was like, no, dude, just tell him I am dying, and then he's gonna immediately be like, oh my god, I am so sorry. Like, it's
3 words, bro. I have cancer. Like,
I don't believe you, you slut. Like, I mean, it's just like, but also, and then the same thing with the girl that he's
that one was second.
Yeah, okay, that one was second. The one with what's her name too?
Yeah, the young woman.
Mitsuo? No, no. Why is she not listed at the top? It's not fair.
I'm not sure.
Look it up, Adam.
I'm on it.
But and then the same thing with when he finally tells her, like, that scene started and they're sitting there, and then in the back there's like a birthday celebration that's getting prepped, and I'm like, ooh, okay, I like this juxtaposition, like, all right. And immediately it's like, okay, this is the conversation where he's finally going to tell her. And then it just like he kept deflecting and looking down and not doing it. It was just like those are the only 2 scenes where I felt like, oh god, like, come on, like, I just wish that it would have been handled differently. It might not bother me at all on rewatch, but just those 2 parts were why.
I think at least with his son, there's a moment where he's gonna tell him, and then his son says something kind of selfish about like his money, and he just kind of he's like, "Fuck you, I'm not telling you."
Yeah, and then almost to the end, he's just like, "Yeah, my son is just an asshole."
Yeah, which is interesting. Like,
just like, the movie
itself, like, we never get to see a resolution or anything after that point, which is kind of funny in a way.
And interesting too that the son and the daughter-in-law were at the funeral, but like they don't really participate in the conversation very much at all. Like, it's like all of Dad's coworkers and friends just talking about him right in front of me. I'm just gonna sip my sake and just not say anything. Like, I expected something from the son. I expected some tearful, I regret or something, I guess.
We get a little bit of that with them, but I was expecting them to speak up at some point and say, or like even something like, I didn't know my dad was like this, or whatever, but completely silence. I can't find who this girl is, by the way.
Yeah, I've been struggling as well. Oh, I found her.
Even on Letterboxd?
Miki Odagiri. She's Toyo.
Toyo.
Yeah.
That was her name?
Where the fuck is that listed?
Yeah. It's on Letterboxd. She's in the second row.
Okay.
Second from the left.
I'm on IMDb and I don't see Toyo listed.
Crazy.
That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous.
She was great. Also, she was very good as the bubbly kind of, his.
Oh, there it is.
And his
I really liked how they sort of brought that relationship to its ultimate conclusion where
Yeah.
like eventually this is just going to get weird and she's not going to want to spend time with this old man.
Yeah.
And like that, those are a lot of the decisions that I think the movie makes that keeps it from being too sentimental and grounding it, where it's like, yeah, for like a day, she's like, cool, thanks. Like you
Yeah,
bought
for
me
dinner and some cool shit. Like,
yeah, and you let me leave work, and then you're gonna buy me lunch a few times, but then eventually she's just like, why are you like trying to hang out with me every day?
Yeah.
Which is
he's
a
also like really
normal
weird when that
reaction.
happens too, because he's like in her face, like, I just want to be young like you, and it's like, dude, back off, like, just chill, bro. Like,
Yeah, definitely.
Also a little interesting how her character, like she wants to find a new job because she knows she doesn't fit in, but then like she finds a new job and she seems very excited about it and that she's like wants to take it seriously, but then like when we see her at that new job, it doesn't seem that not like I feel like there was a little commentary on again on kind of like capitalism and kind of like her bubbliness is going to get like slowly ground out of her by
Yes.
like these jobs.
Yeah. It's subtle the way that he does that, where he doesn't need to like draw our attention to the fact that like, oh, she's just doing this. She's gonna get bored here in like 6 months.
Yeah, and move on again or something. Yeah.
All right. Was there anything else that you guys wanted to mention?
I think that was all I had.
Yeah, that's everything.
I guess, yeah, last thing for me would be in your Kurosawa rankings. Right now, this is my second favorite. It's still below Ron, but slightly above High and Low.
Okay. Mine are Ikiru 1, Ron 2, High and Low 3.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
All right.
But yeah, like I said, this is currently my number 12 movie of all time. So, and yeah, knocking on the door for the top 10.
All right. Well, if that's it, and we'll just remind them again, movie club for next week is The Piano from what year?
From 92, I think.
93, directed by Jane Campion.
Yes, 1993, directed by Jane Campion, starring Holly Hunter, Harvey Keitel, Sam Neill, and Anna Paquin.
Nice. All right, I'm excited.
That'll be a Sam Neill movie.
Oh, Sam Neill and Harvey Keitel? Yes, please. Whose turn is it to put a wrap on the show?
That would be mine.
Yep.
All right, take it away, Nate.
I can't afford to hate people. I don't have that kind of time.